From the Pubco Studios in Oklahoma City, you're watching The Press Row. I'm Jenny Carlson here with Barry Trammell. Time for 5 and 5. 5 topics, about a minute each for 5 minutes. Let's get right to it with some college football. Lane Kiffin and Paul Pasqualoni were fired. We're talking USC and Connecticut, obviously. Who's next to walk that mid-season plank, Barry?
Well, I mean, all the speculation centers on Mack Brown, and I think that's a good possibility. I don't think Texas is going to lop Mack off and say no more, you're out immediately. It's not the Texas way of doing things. Pretty classy organization, takes care of its people. I can see a scenario by which Mack comes out and says, you know what, I resign, I'm going to coach out the season, then we'll move on down the road. If Texas should lose to Iowa State on Thursday night, I think it's a possibility that he does that before OU Texas. If he goes to Dallas, gets blown out again, third straight year by the Sooners, I think that's a possibility. So I think that's the one to look at is Mack Brown at Texas.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking Mack is the guy that if there's going to be a mid-season change, it's going to be him. And yeah, I don't think he'll get fired, but I think there is a chance he's out. I don't think DeLoss Dodds, who's going to be retiring here in another year or so, I don't think he would force a firing. I think he's too close to Mack, and that's not really how he does his business. But clearly, if things continue to go awry for Texas, the fan revolt will be too great. There'll have to be something that happens down in Austin. All right, our next one is about OSU's offense. Hey, what ails the OSU offense? Barry, is it quarterback, tailback, line play, coordinator? What do you give it to?
I'm going to, I think it's a little bit of all of those. I'm going to say number one, though, I think the Cowboys miss a star caliber tailback. 5 of the last 6 years, OSU has had an all Big 12 tailback. This year, they don't. They've had the likes of Kendall Hunter and Joseph Randall and guys that could really play. Now Jeremy Smith, who's sort of been an auxiliary back, is being the main guy, has not performed the way OSU needs him to. I know there weren't a lot of holes in Morgantown to run through, but Des Rowland had 40-something yards on 6 or 7 carries. Jeremy Smith, 1 yard on 15 carries. Tells me they might need to be moving towards Des Rowland come Saturday.
Yeah, and I think they actually will. I think they have to. I just think they have to get more out of the run game. But you mentioned the lacking space to run in Morgantown, and absolutely, offensive line is an issue. You know, Joe Wickline has done such a fantastic job. We just expect that offensive line to continue as it always does, regardless of who leaves, who gets hurt. Doesn't matter. Well, this is the first year where we have seen that it's not just that easy. You move Parker Graham from right guard to left tackle when Devin Davis hurts his knee. Parker Graham's not as good a left tackle as Devin Davis would have been, so right there you go down a notch, and then they're struggling to find the replacement at right guard. They've played 3 different guys there, haven't really seen a guy that they love, so they're trying to figure out something, find some answers, and they haven't yet. And it hurt the Cowboys in the pass game. It hurt them in the run game. It just wasn't good in Morgantown, so they're going to have to figure out something. I'm not sure if Joe Wickline has any more answers, but I'm sure he's looking. All right, what about this, Barry? OU, are the Sooners bona fide BCS title game contenders?
Sure, why not? I mean, they're unbeaten. Right. Here's the deal. They're unbeaten. And they, you know, the field is not full of mines. The Big 12's pretty weak. Games at Waco and Stillwater are going to be tough, but it's not like they're playing at Georgia and LSU. So the Sooners have a chance to run the table. And if you run the table, you're in the discussion for BCS title game. Oklahoma's problem is that they're going to lose all tiebreakers with other teams. If they're unbeaten and Clemson is unbeaten, Clemson will win that tiebreaker. Oregon and Oklahoma. Oregon will win that tiebreaker. Anybody from the SEC unbeaten, SEC will win that tiebreaker. So the Sooners need some help, but sure, they're a contender.
Yeah, I think so too. I said last week before last week's games that I thought that it was possible that a Big 12 team could run the table, and I was thinking largely at the time about OU, Baylor, and OSU because the rest of the conference was looking so weak. Now you've got OSU falling by the wayside. Baylor and OU still undefeated. I think that could be a game to determine who wins the Big 12 and maybe is in that title game talk for the BCS because, I mean, what other games are looking like really losable games for either of those teams? I don't know. Now, Baylor hasn't played anybody. We were talking about that earlier. They haven't really played anybody. So they look good on offense, but how good they are, I think we're going to find out more this week. All right, Barry, hey, let's talk government shutdown. Everybody's talking about this. So if the government shut all the way down, what would you miss most?
I think it's pretty clear what I would miss most, and that is trash pickup. Now, I've never traveled outside of this country, and frankly, it's going to take quite an act to get me to do so. But the people that have gone other places, India, the Middle East, places like that, talk about just trash in the streets. And we had a friend of ours that worked with us, went to India for a month last year, talked about just trash everywhere. If nobody picked up our trash, we would have trash everywhere. So trash pickup at my house is on Thursday, which is today. So here's my suggestion to everybody. When you get home, if you pass the trash truck, stop and give them a salute. They are underappreciated workers.
I would agree with that. It's trash day at my house too. How does that work? There you go. I would say, I mean, I'm going to miss the folks who put their lives on the line. You know, you talk about firefighters and police and all those sorts of things. If we're talking about total shutdown and not having any government services, sign me up for missing those folks who protect us. All right, lastly, let's talk a little Thunder. Hey, will Russell Westbrook's latest surgery cost the Thunder seeding position?
I'm going to say yes. Let's say he misses 20 games. And the difference, let's say with Russell, they go 14-6. Without him, they go 12-8. Let's say, you know, that's, you know, giving the Thunder the benefit of the doubt, maybe playing 600 ball without Russell. So that's 2 games. I think 2 games will be the difference, because if you haven't noticed, the top of the West is packed. It's not like 2 years ago when there was clear separation. I mean, I think anywhere between 55, 62 wins, you're going to have 4 or 5 teams. We had 5 teams last year in that group. So you lose 2 or 3 games off what you could have been, definitely drops you from a 1 to a 3 or 4, from a 2 to a 4 or 5. So I think it will cost the Thunder.
Yeah, I think it's going to as well. But I tell you what, it's going to be interesting to watch these games without Russell Westbrook, because while we obviously have seen this team without him in the playoffs, it's a whole different type of basketball when you're talking about regular season versus playoff ball. I mean, in the playoffs, teams are playing each other every night. They're learning every little intricacy, every little detail. They can, you know, scheme away some things that might, you know, be getting them in game 1. They're not as bad in game 3. I mean, teams are not able to do that in the regular season. They're going from one game to the next, and it's really hard to adjust. So you're still trotting Kevin Durant out there. You're still trotting Serge Ibaka out there. You're still going to have some good role players around those guys. And teams aren't going to have they're not going to be playing the Thunder every game. So I don't know. I think the Thunder is still in pretty good shape early, but clearly, when you play without Russell Westbrook, don't you expect some games to be lost? And in the West, it's bound to hurt. And be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoma.